That the Irish team lost because they want to go on the sesh in Japan. Sesh! All the way!
That's the Six Nations Championship on OTB Sports Radio.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yeah, you're very welcome along to OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio. If you're listening to us on the radio, then, well, if you're not, you should be, because it's a great way to go about your morning. And you just missed the promo for the Six Nations, where it said that Eoin Sheahan was going to be meeting the people again for the Six Nations, returning to the scene of the crime, you might call it, except obviously the scene of that crime was in Japan. Accidental partridge on my part. But you're going back out to go and meet your rugby people. You're going to go out and humiliate them again accidentally.
Good to hear about this.
Come on. You knew it was coming. You didn't need to be asked.
No, I didn't actually. Now that I have been asked, absolutely, it's a yes. It's an affirmative, because why not? I'm not quite sure. I'd say that the whole World Cup notion tends to get everybody into a bit of a frenzy. I can't imagine we'll have that unless we've just missed success so much that the 2018 feels like such a long time ago, that if we win one game in the Six Nations, if we're at one game where we win, maybe people will just go absolutely mental. There is that possibility. So actually, I'm kind of encouraged. Maybe it doesn't need to be a World Cup.
There's a different atmosphere around the Six Nations, obviously. People haven't gathered tens of thousands to travel to the far side of the world to support their team through thin and thinner.
Yes, it's just pods of 2, 3, 4 people max usually. Whereas
no, it's huge. Yeah, we're here. It's like, oh, sorry, over there. Yeah.
But over there was like everybody was going, like making big tent circles if it was a festival or something like that.
Here it's huge crowds of hip flasks.
Basically, like it all depends on what the hip flask is full of. If it's full of alcohol and the soul is full of joy after a win for Ireland, that's what makes a great vox pop.
And all the better if it's, I mean, just purely from a vox pop perspective, but not for Irish rugby, all the better if it's been a defeat, right?
Well, certainly the reaction to the videos are all the better if it's a defeat. Why is that person mildly positive when that team has brought shame on our nation is one of my favourite tones of comments. There was a lot of people who thought people in Japan brought shame on Ireland, which was perhaps I wouldn't go along with that.
Can you
whatsoever.
be shamed by other people from your nation? I always find that a little bit, well, I mean, it's not me actually doing that. They just were born in the same part of the world as me. I'm not responsible for them.
It's true. Like, I mean...
I'm going out of my way to be ashamed by you because we, share some deep architectural DNA.
So, say, for example, if you were speaking to an English football... Say when England are playing in the World Cup or in the Euros this summer.
And they sack Temple Bar, will we be like, oh, shame on all of England?
And then you meet another English football fan who's just a polite bloke. You then say, because all English fans are blokes, do you then say that...
you must be ashamed of your nation. Yeah. No.
I think there's kind of a connection to that, so I wouldn't say it's too dissimilar.
No. I don't collectively hold every English soccer fan responsible for, like, John from Staines and his like, whatever, FC UK top ripped, bottling, poor Brazilian going about their job in Temple Bar. I don't blame John from Staines for that. I mean, he could be a nice guy.
Yeah, it's probably somebody from Rochdale.
Oh no, hang on, was John from Staines the baddie? It was I can't remember.
This is where the lines get blurred. This is what I'm talking about. So I'm saying that human nature would suggest that we kind of actually connect two different parts of one supporters group, even though it's probably the wrong thing to do. And I would say in the case of some rugby supporters, it's definitely the wrong thing to do. Very smooth from Tommy.
Bad limbo. I mean, come on, we should have a limbo competition every day where Tommy has to come in and do can you do it? Can you do it? And we're like, so this was not what we were supposed to talk about, because there is loads for us to talk about. But is Ireland ready for the England fans coming for a quarter-finals?
This is something we haven't spoken about.
They might get beaten Even if they don't get beaten, what is Temple Bar going to be like for the 24 hours preceding that?
I would advise people in Temple Bar to close, shut down, don't allow it to happen to yourself. Alternatively, it'll just be a mess. Like, it's not going to be... I'm trying to think of the permutations in my head. It could be Germany, couldn't it?
Germany or Portugal, I think.
Germany or Portugal, right, okay. I was going to say, at least there's no country like Russia, aka Euro 2016, that would perhaps cause any incendiary moments with England. Yeah. And then I just forgot that Germany are on that side of the draw. So, we're probably going to get ready for World War III in Temple Bar, which I don't think anybody saw as the setting for that. But at least we get a front row seat.
I'm sure the policing, I'm sure there's a lot of people volunteering to police that day. Kevin Callahan says top of the morning from Slovakia, and Dara O'Toole says top of the morning from the 38B. So all the way from I don't know which part of town the 38B goes from in Dublin, but hello to Slovakia and hello to the 38B as well. Some quick news for you this morning here before we tell you what's coming up in the show. Trezeguet's goal deep into injury time saw Villa secure a place in the Carabao Cup final last night. Dean Smith's side 2-1 winners over Leicester in the second leg of their semi-final. As predicted here in the show, right? I did say yesterday that time was up for the cup miracle that was the Leicester City manager, who hadn't lost a cup tie in 6 million years. He's beaten now, Brendan. Not smiling now, are you, buddy?
Dean Smith, the superior.
How's your six-pack now, buddy? There was a pitch invasion at full time, which, come on. Everybody needs to calm down on pitch invasions in English football. Obviously, it's going to be Villa versus Man City, more than likely. City 3-1 up, heading into the second leg against Manchester United at the Etihad tonight, and you would expect that. You would expect them to go all out and not to ease up. Kick-off in that one is 7:45. Okay, the last bit about football for now. After the furore surrounding the FA Cup replay with Shrewsbury, Liverpool will look to take another step towards the Premier League title tonight. Club side can open up a 19-point lead with victory away to West Ham. Liverpool without Sadio Mane, who suffered a minor muscle tear in the win at Wolves. Kick-off at the London Stadium is at 7:45. Darren Randolph, who has played 2 games for West Ham so far since his move, conceded 5 goals. May not start the game tonight, apparently. David Moyes has been making come-hither eyes to the injured goalkeeper who might be coming back and gone, we're really excited about getting our injured goalkeeper back. They've just signed Darren Randolph. He's played 2 games and already David Moyes is like, it might be our second choice. Rafa Nadal aiming to reach the last 4 of the Australian Open this morning. He's up against Dominic Thiem in tonight's final match at the Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne. The winner ends up against Alexander Zverev, who beat Stan Wawrinka in 4 sets in their quarterfinal. Second ladies singles semi will be between Simona Halep and Gabin Muguruza after they won their matches earlier on this morning. And Sigerson Cup final tonight. IT Carlo up against DCU. Games on in the DCU Sports Grounds. Throw-in is at 7:30. Tommy's going along in his DCU jersey. He's going to be a full kit wanker tonight. In the vain hope that they might let him run on, even though he hasn't been a student there for about 5 years. 2 quarterfinals down for decision in the Fitzgibbon Cup. Last year's beaten finalist Mary I up against UL from 2. No word yet on whether or not Mary I are going to invade through the trees. And at 6, reigning champions UCC take on UCD at the Mardyke. Here's what's coming up on the show this morning. Going to bring you some of Andy Farrell's press from yesterday at 7:45. Top 5 stories of the morning coming your way at 8 o'clock, as it does every morning here on OTB AM. Nathan Hines is going to join us for a bit of perspective on how he expects Scotland to play against Ireland on Saturday in the Six Nations. Sports news with Tom at 8:35. Mike Carlson is going to preview the Super Bowl for us. Top 5 stories at 9 o'clock. And then Martha Byrne, the Dublin footballer, is going to talk to us about a couple of stories around nutrition in women's football and also just generally the state of the game at the moment. That's coming your way between now and 9:30. But first, it's time for the papers.
OTB AM.
Okay, so the headline on the Irish Times piece is Winds of Change as Ireland name a refreshed team picked on form. Which is definitely one take on it, because there was a lot of suggestion that it wasn't a team picked entirely on form, given that Cooney isn't in the team, right?
If it was a form team, John Cooney would be in the starting 15. Absolutely no question about that. So I don't think you can say it's a team picked on form.
So Larmour starts, Conway starts. You would say they're form picks. Well, Addison not being in the squad at all, is that picking on form? Addison's...
It's not. Addison not being involved. You would have thought that, like, not that you would have thought. I think it's a fact that Addison is an unbelievably exciting prospect at number 23. We were speaking to, like, we'll get into this shortly as well. Like, is there a need for perhaps a scrum half and an out half on the bench? Given the options you have, you would say that the age profile of the halfbacks mean that you do need a replacement for both.
Yeah, not according to Ron O'Gara on the show yesterday. He was saying that wasn't necessarily the case. So,
the Irish Examiner this morning leads with eyeing the future. Doris the big winner as Farrell era begins in earnest. While Donald Lenihan's take is that Farrell has put his faith in Conor Murray. Coaches live or die by such decisions. Kieran Shannon writing about basketball this morning, saying that Irish basketball's unsung heroes should get the funding they deserve. Bruno on the way. This will be the big transfer story of the day today. United agree a €55 million fee for Portuguese midfielder Bruno Fernandes. Silence is golden. McClean, sectarian abuse has simmered right down. We'll hear from James McClean here on OTB AM this morning. And message received. GAA's concerns over WhatsApp usage by clubs. The GAA considering setting up their own communications app for players to interact with their teammates.
The back page of the Herald. FAI made a balls of it. This is James McClean. A picture with his 2-year-old daughter Willow at the unveiling of Aviva's new sensory hub in Aviva Stadium, and Horan will target Dublin tie Varley. So Conor McKeown's spoken with Enda Varley, who plays for Vincent's in Dublin and who obviously used to play for Mayo. Was actually part of the Mayo team that beat Dublin the last time Mayo beat Dublin. Do you know when?
2012?
Because you've read the piece, good man. Did you know it anyway?
It's bad that I actually had to kind of rack my brains for something that I read 40 minutes ago.
I didn't know that it had been that long since they beat them in any game. Even like a meaningless league game in Castlebar or a meaningless league game in Croke Park.
It's almost as if the meaningless league games aren't actually meaningless.
Yeah.
And when people say, sure, it's only the league, and that they're bemused by the fact that a brawl breaks out in a big league game on a Saturday night, they're missing the point that actually these players care about these games.
Yeah.
Back page of the Irish Daily Mail this morning is Farrell's faith. Ireland coach backs Murray to shine in opener. Villa win thriller is the headline from the Carabao Cup semi-final, second leg. Trezeguet firing Villa to the final. McClean then again here saying, I'll take abuse for next generation. And Breffni boss Graham despairs as player drains his abyss beckon for Gavin. He apologised after their performance against Armagh the weekend, and you have to feel for Mickey Graham given the way his squad has hemorrhaged players basically over the course of the last few months, and they're going down to Division 3, you suspect, and will struggle big time to make it into Tier 1 football this year in the All-Ireland Championship.
They were hammered. It wasn't close.
Yeah.
The Telegraph, Wembley, here we come. That's Trezeguet wheeling away in ecstasy after scoring the winner against Leicester last night. And Fernandes and Man United agree potential £68 million sterling deal. And Griffiths out. Saracens chief exits after 26 days. So the chief executive at Saracens, who was in to try and steady the ship, who was a former chief executive, so he was coming back, knew the club, knew the lay of the land, lasted 28 days, and they were fully docked 70 points. So the relegation, I mean, obviously everybody knew they were already being relegated, but I don't know, I read the story wrong. I thought they were going to try and concoct some way to keep Saracens in. They're going to concoct as many ways as they can to keep Saracens relevant next year, but he couldn't. 26 days in charge, of tensions with the chairman, Neil Goulding. So a shit show at the shit show.
Absolutely. Back page of the Irish Independent this morning is Murray has a major role in Ireland's future, insists Farrell. Coach expecting good things from Munster star after winning Scrum-half selection battle. In football, it's Fernandes' relief for Solskjaer as United agree €55 million deal with Sporting. Martin Bretney then this morning writing about hurling, how it's now an endangered species and the warning signs go unheeded. Obviously in rude health in the south part of the country, but above the Galway to Dublin line, you have real struggles, and he details in depth this morning about how some clubs are trying to be pushed in certain parts of the country, pushed in a good way, I mean, and that more funding should be brought from Central Council to perhaps encourage people to join these local clubs.
Thugs target United chief Ed, so these are flares being thrown over the gate at Ed Woodward's house, but obviously Ed Woodward was not there and his wife and kids weren't there either. A furious Manchester United mob threw a smoke bomb and fireworks at Ed Woodward's house last night. Around 20 hooded fans targeted the Man United's £2 million Cheshire mansion. And Brewturn, Man United seal £55 million deal despite Barca hijack bid. So Man United have finally agreed Bruno Fernandes' £55 million sterling transfer from Sporting Lisbon. Barcelona yesterday tried to hijack the deal, but United are convinced they've got their man following fresh talks. He hasn't actually signed on just yet, has he? The deal isn't You know,
No, but if they've
cat
gone,
is no in the sack.
they've bitten the cherry for the second time now, so you'd imagine that it's going to be done.
If you're Man United, though, you're like, just make sure the plane lands and the ink is wet. You're blowing that ink wet or dry. Sorry. Yeah.
He's on the pitch for his debut, and you're still only about 95%.
Is that technically a sports headline? Higginsbottom? After Danny Higginbottom?
Possibly.
More Higgins-bum? Is that top of the morning?
Possibly. Kevin was at those awards last
Oh, was
night.
he? I was going to say, no sign of Kev. He's not pictured.
No, well, you clearly don't follow him on Instagram.
No.
Himself and his ice skating partners.
His name?
What?
Go on.
Well, like so.
Have you forgotten the love of his life's name already?
No, Brienne.
All right,
no,
all
but
right.
I'm saying his ice skating partners.
Okay, right, they were all there.
The ice skating partners of the celebrities, I should say.
Caprice is there, I see.
Caprice being one of the other celebrities in Dancing on Ice.
Yeah.
Okay, but what does she do? Soap star?
No, she's like a model.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I don't know much about a lot of the other celebrities, I will admit. But my impression was that Kevin was the only amateur skater who was on this bus from the Instagram stories I saw. So he's obviously got he's high on a priority list, I think it's fair to say.
Right, well, certainly that's a step up from, coppers.
It's like literally award ceremonies that occur in coppers. It is a bit of a step up, all right. Back page of The Guardian this morning is Trezeguet celebrating his winner for Aston Villa last night. We'll get into this shortly. Dreadful neglect has blown 2012 legacy, says top athletics coach. So bad news for England yesterday as the Grace Note predictions came out for the Olympics this year in Tokyo, and they're going to be well down. One of their worst hauls in 60 years is what they're predicting. So this whole Super Saturday legacy, the whole legacy of London 2012 may be fading away. Fury over Farrell is the headline after the news yesterday. The Super League storm from Catalan signing sacked Australian, and United swoop. Solskjaer gets his man with £46.5 million deal for Fernandes.
Back page of the Daily Mirror this morning. I won't be bullied. Liverpool boss blast back at critics. Nobody's going to try and bully Jurgen Klopp. Like, we all know that. Trez for Prez. Trezeguet carried off by delirious Villa fans after dramatic late goal seals Wembley final spot. And we are winning the war against the racists. James McClean has his say. James McClean believes huge progress has been made in his ongoing fight against racist abuse. Credit where it's due. Kick It Out, Staffordshire Police, English FA, Football League, PFA. They've been brilliant recently. The abuse in the last few games has simmered right down.
I'm not kidding, says the back of the Irish Daily Star. That's Klopp, who says he won't watch youngsters in Cup replay. You've got James McClean there as well. My family would prefer Bosnia to the north. Trezeguet's golden goal is the headline on the Carabao Cup last night, while Farrell looks to the past and Bruno's red deal is done.
And the Times, the London Times, there is United agree Fernandes deal at last. Sporting Lisbon accept fee rising from 46.6. And Saracens dealt 70-point blow. Saracens have been deducted a further 70 points to guarantee they will finish bottom of the Gallagher Premiership. There's a headline there. Anger over Falau signing. Rugby League outraged as homophobe joins Catalans. And Klopp stands firm over snub. Jurgen Klopp will boycott Liverpool's FA Cup fourth round replay with Shrewsbury Town next week on a point of principle, as he refused to soften his stance over the club being forced to play during the winter break.
The Racing Post leads with a bit of a preview to Leopardstown at the weekend. Honeysuckle raring to go as owner eyes dream double. And then back of the Racing Post is rely on Aguero to finish the job. Manchester City against Manchester United tonight at 7:45. Are we totally writing this off? Like, I mean,
yes.
it's been
it's
strange all year for Manchester United, where
never
they
give a sucker
won
an even
games
break
against Manchester City this season that they were not expected to win. I know that they need to win big, but it's 3-1 in the first leg.
Okay, so it's possible they win 1-0 tonight because Man City are bored and are not trying because they know they're already through. Isn't that a possible outcome?
I'm just saying it's always possible when the deficit is 3-1.
So
and this is...
No, it isn't. There's no way they're going to win that game 2-0.
This is such an erratic Manchester United side. And it's not like we're talking about League 2 table middlers going up against Manchester. We are talking about fifth place in the Premier League. Like, it's fifth beating second. 3-1 down. Granted, it's away from home. But I would not write this thing off just yet. At least watch the first 15 minutes and then wait for Aguero to score a brace in the first 15 minutes and then it's all done.
So give me your prediction.
Manchester City are still going through. I'm just saying it's worth watching. It's worth watching for 20 minutes.
No Irish news for you this morning. Here's the top stories on offtheball.com. Manchester United executive Ed Woodward's home attacked. James McClean on dealing with his daughter's autism. It's a challenge for her and us. especially after what was in the news yesterday with Senator Catherine Noone. Very timely talk last night with, was it Nathan in studio last night, interviewing James McClean. That full interview is available for you and on all of our social channels and, of course, on offtheball.com. They're mindless idiots. James McClean hits out at abusive football fans. Also talking rugby, of course. Many players are just interested in the top 14. Ronan O'Gara talking about French apathy. And Bruno Fernandes, will he actually improve Manchester United? It's a good question, isn't it? Are they spending a lot of money? Is Bruno Fernandes the new Fred? Or is he somebody who's actually going to immediately step into the team and be able, for the vagaries of the Premier League and for the pressure of being Manchester United's latest messiah?
Time will tell. I think anybody who says they've got a definite answer to that question is lying to you. Basically, you can't compare what he's done with Sporting Lisbon at what the shit show is at Manchester United right now, because it's a tough place to make your name.
Yeah. Hashtag OTBAM if you want to leave a comment for us on Twitter, or of course you can leave one on the YouTube stream as well. Now let's turn our attention to our main story this morning. Andy Farrell has been speaking to the media. Here he is talking about what kind of rugby he wants the Irish team playing.
I want to see the good old traditions of what all champion Irish teams have always been about, you know. Well, we want to be a team that the Irish public love watching, you know. I suppose the traditional parts of those teams have always been a dominant forward pack, an aggressive forward pack, unbelievably hard to handle. I've been on the other side of that myself, and a back line that facilitates that for the forward pack and also takes advantage for what the forwards are doing for them. You know, that's going back throughout history, you know, and yeah, those are the essential parts of the game. There are little bits that we're trying to build. They'll take time. We'll see how they progress over the next wee while. But hopefully before not too long, we're talking about our own history as well. Yeah, so
Look, I mean, we're not stupid. Our identity is that we've had good packs, and occasionally we've had backs who were good enough to match our good quality packs, and when those two things were in concert, we would win a championship or maybe a Grand Slam. Twice, exactly. In the modern era.
And it coincides nicely that we've had a collection of fantastic back rows over the last 10-15 years that have allowed that link between forwards and backs to become a bit more of a seamless thing. But I guess there is two ways you could look at it. You could say to yourself, oh no, not more play that's predicated on how good our forwards are. Or you could look at it and say, well, actually, that this is the way we are fixed. Perhaps our best talents, well, not perhaps, and definitely our best talents have been in the back row, as I've said recently. That is in the pack. So perhaps we should be utilising our best position of the pitch as much as we can.
Yeah, so look, some people are like, it's conservative. Why can't we be the Harlem Globetrotters? Because, look, I mean, everybody knows. I think that's just a message. I still love my forwards. Don't worry. I mean, my cat's going to make our backs look great. We're going to have a variation on all of our attacking play. We're going to start playing a little bit like Leinster. Leinster's pack are really good.
Like, I think we've mentioned Will Addison at the top of the show. He's somebody that I would have liked to have seen get some game time at the weekend, a really exciting prospect. But perhaps if you focus too much on that, you forget the fact that Jordan Larmour is going to be starting for it. Like, this is...
Larmour and Conway.
And Conway, who obviously has been brilliant. Like, this is the anointing, essentially, of Jordan Larmour this weekend. It's like, here is your jersey, this is yours. Go forth and dazzle every other rugby player you come up against for the next couple of years. You can step off both feet. You've got speed. Other than Andrew Conway, perhaps the fastest player in the squad right now. Just so much to be excited about when it comes to this player. And I think we've kind of lost sight of the fact that this is his first opportunity as a starter. It's always been Rob Kearney ahead of him. This is the beginning of Jordan Larmour's Ireland career.
Properly, yeah.
Properly.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that's
pretty exciting.
While I think that the first thing that kind of jumped out to me was Cooney not getting his opportunity from the start. Well, I'm not sure about that, and Will Addison not getting an opportunity in the squad. They were two disappointing elements, but then I think it's just impossible to not be excited by Doris and especially Larmour.
Well, let's hear what Andy Farrell had to say about his selection decisions.
Well, we've got three centres that are starting, and Chris Farrell and Stu McCluskey, who are in great form as well. And you've got to make a choice somewhere along the line. there's not that much in it, to be honest. I'm a massive Robbie Henshaw fan, and Robbie knows that you've got to make a decision. And we think for this week, we'll go with Bundy, and Gary Ringrose is in great form, so we'll see how that goes. And Robbie's there, raring to go, coming off the bench. Yeah, no, we looked after him for a few days, but we've had plenty of walkthroughs, etc., jog-throughs, and Jordan's been part of all that, and he's been training for the last couple of days, and he was flying out there today. John's in great form. John's part of this squad. He's in fine form. He's had a few days that he missed through HIA protocols, but still, as I said before, Connor's been going great guns in camp as well, and John's been supporting Connor within that role, and everyone's round to go now. Well, we've got to do what's right for the group, you know. We've got to do what's right for the team to be at our best on Saturday, and we believe for this game, we'll see how we go after that.
And in some ways, I suppose that so many people are talking about John Cooney, it's not about making the popular call, is it?
No, I've got to do what's right for the team. I've got to do what's right for the team to perform, and that's my job.
It's funny, we had Stephen Ferris on a couple of weeks back, and he was talking about the Munster-Ulster game, after which the general public had anointed, oh, well, Cooney won that one, because obviously Ulster crushed Munster. And he was making the point that if you just looked at the basics of what the two scrum halves did, Conor Murray's performance was the equal of, if not better than, John Cooney's that day. He did all the basics well. His pack got beaten up and destroyed, and so therefore he's on the back foot, but his passing was good, his time with the rucks was good. Like, the type of thing that, if you look at these two performances in isolation, which obviously the selectors will do, right? And then you spool that forward to training, where the difference in the two players' careers, we're talking about somebody with 90 caps, probably 100 international caps maybe at this point, if you include all his lines as well, close enough to it, and John Cooney with barely any, and they're the same age. There's going to be a massive advantage when it comes to the training sessions and how quickly Conor Murray adapts to what the coaching ticket wants from them, but just because he's a few rungs ahead of Cooney in the ladder. So Cooney probably had to shoot the lights out in the last two rounds of the Heineken Champions Cup and in training, and might not just have been there yet. So maybe over the course of the tournament he displaces him, but like, I think the outcry against Murray and in favour of Cooney would have been an easy decision to just ride that train. First game in charge, I'm going to do that. But actually, this means that this makes Cooney go back and go, right, I've got to do a bit more.
Possibly. I'm not sure if there has been an outcry against Conor Murray in all of this. I think it's genuinely just been an outcry for John Cooney. I think Conor Murray, I think he'll probably say his lowest ebb came at some point during 2019 so far in his career. I think that it's probably come back up a little bit over the last month or two. Like, and Ferris was right in what he was saying, that if you take the two performances in isolation, there's no guarantee that Cooney was the better scrum half on the night. But I don't think there was any guarantee that Murray was the better scrum half on the night either. I get the fact that he's played more alongside Johnny Sexton recently. You want to have a scrum half who has played with the majority of that pack in the green jersey for a while, and perhaps the fact that you've got a brand new cap in at number 8 means you need to have the experienced, higher capped player at number 9. I buy all that, but I just feel that if you were picking on form, especially for your opening game as a coach against Scotland, John Cooney is the guy. Like, you're not saying that Murray's been terrible. You're just saying that Cooney's been fantastic. I
wonder, does Cooney get 25 minutes in a way that he would never have got 25 minutes off the bench for Ireland when Schmidt was there? Like, most games, Murray would have played the vast majority of it. I wonder if then that changes and actually you begin to see they don't think there's a significant diminution. Ross Byrne's on the bench as well, which is obviously something that means that Cooney is just cover, he's specialist cover as opposed to cover for 10 as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I hadn't really thought too much about it until Ronan O'Gara mentioned it yesterday, and I like that whole aspect of John Cooney being your place kicker off the bench, which does mean, however, that you've only got one half back on the bench. Your Robbie Henshaw becomes your number 22, and then Will Addison will become your number 23. I personally would like to have seen that more, but I get the fact that he'll probably want to replace Murray and Sexton at some point, because it's a preservation game as well at the start of the Six Nations. But just on the last point on Cooney, I think O'Gara mentioned it as well yesterday morning, that he's not going to be place kicking for Ireland. And I do wonder if that part of the analysis isn't actually helping John Cooney, that people are like, well, he's not going to be the scrum half he is for Ulster that he is for Ireland, because Sexton's going to be taking all the kicks. But I think if you forget all that, of course he's a great place kicker and all that, but just as a pure scrum half, doing what scrum halves tend to do and not being on the tee, he's been absolutely unbelievable all season. So
did he not come off the absolute peak in the last 2 rounds of the Champions Cup?
I would definitely say that the hype has cooled and a little bit.
Yeah.
But it couldn't have got much more intense. I still thought he was really good in the penultimate round. I don't think he's been bad by any stretch of the imagination.
Let's hear a bit more from the game plan. And here he is Andy Farrell talking about the Irish game plan ahead of the 2026 Nations. Have a listen.
Well, obviously we've got a plan in the back of our mind, a game plan of how we want to play, and obviously, hopefully that will come to fruition to you guys over the coming weeks, But at the same time, we want to win. We want to perform at the weekend, and simply put, we pick a side to hopefully do a job against the Scotland team this week. We're open-minded enough to see whether that team changes next week, because, like I've said, and I've said to the players, competition for places has to be our friend in this competition, and that's how we'd like it to stay.
All right, we all hope that Ireland can take a little bit of Leinster's game plan, that Mike Catt is some kind of offensive genius, and away we go.
That would be nice. I don't think anybody really expects it. I don't think we're going to see much different from Ireland. I think we could see a very effective Six Nations which sees us go close to a championship, and I don't think stylistically we're going to see much different. I think we forget, or not that we forget, I think it's very obvious actually that there's been continuity from the Schmidt era. That was the whole point of this.
I think we'll see some significant differences. I don't think that I'm certainly not going to judge Andy Farrell's entire tenure or his ambition on this Six Nations alone, because it's his first opportunity to have any game time with the players. But I do think that the influence of Mike Catt and I think the continuity is actually less important than the similarity in styles between the current coaching ticket and what's going on at Leinster. I think that's the best part about this, and I'm really looking forward to how that evolves over the course of the next 18 months to 2 years, because this is a long-term project.
Okay, it will evolve, but I don't expect an evolution to happen in the next month or two that will allow us to be sitting here at the end of the Six Nations saying, well, we've now got a vastly different Ireland team. I think we will be excited about the careers of Caelan Doris and Jordan Larmour, more excited, I should say, Andrew Conway as well. Perhaps there'll be a new midfielder who's going to play, and we'll have Ronan Kelleher coming in.
Okay, quickly, where are we going to finish? Where are we going to finish?
Second.
Behind England?
England, yeah.
I think there's a chance now. I feel a bit more confident now that I've seen that team. There's a chance we could win this whole thing. Obviously, this is the hardest one to win. But anyway, coming up on Thursday's OTB AM, Thursday's tomorrow, we'll give you the chance to win 2 tickets to Ireland against Scotland in the Aviva Stadium on Saturday. We're going to let you know how you can enter and win tomorrow morning at 7:30. On top of that, all this week on Off the Ball's Twitter page, we've got a daily competition courtesy of Vodafone Ireland. That's at Vodafone Ireland on Twitter, with prizes being given away each day, including jerseys, signed rugby balls and signed team pictures. We're also giving away tickets to all of Ireland's home games in the Six Nations to one of the daily prize winners. So all of the home games, we're going to give you tickets for them. One single winner is going to go to all of our home games. Keep an eye on our Twitter page all this week to give them a chance to win some of these great prizes. Plenty coming up in the next hour. Football, Nathan Hines, Super Bowl, and Dublin star Martha Byrne. It's 8 minutes past. We're going to be back with our top 5 stories after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Off the Ball 2019 IMRO Radio Awards Sports Programme of the Year.
Salah takes the shot. Oh, Mo Salah with one of the goals of the season.
Who will see their dreams turn into reality? Whose names will be etched in history forever?
Offtheball.com, best online publisher at the 2019 Spider Awards.
A big breaking story on offtheball.com for you this morning. We have the very latest on the Mayo leaks. We now know what went on in that secretive Mayo County Board meeting.
2019 Irish Sponsorship Awards Best Radio Sponsorship, OTB Super Value GAA Roadshows.
Well, when she comes back, get your arse back here, he said. Star is out sitting on the swing and Darren O'Sullivan is pushing him.
OTB Sports Radio, live online 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB AM.
Top 5 stories for you here this morning. James McClean, Jurgen Klopp, Ed Woodward. I saw that Woodward had it. I was like, why is everybody invading Clive Woodward's head? Didn't he, I thought it was like a Professor Emeritus of English Rugby. It's obviously not Clive, it's Ed. Dublin-Mayo build-up and Olympic medals. We're going to win plenty. Let's go back to our top story this morning. James McClean, all over the news. Here's part of our extended chat with James McClean describing the sectarian abuse that he receives from rival fans.
It seems to be somewhat isolated, particularly, say, in the Premier League. Obviously, when England go to away games, it's a bit different. But when you look at some of the incidents around Raheem Sterling and games with Chelsea, that it can be one individual it focuses in on. When you're playing, is it one individual, or do you feel it's actually a greater crowd of people that's just accepted amongst the away support?
No, it's a greater crowd of people. It's very loud to hear, so, you know what I mean? So,
and what sort of stuff is it?
People's here. It's just the
because
usual.
Generally it's sectarian abuse.
Yeah, a lot of it's like, fuck the IRA, which is... Well, I can deal with that because, well, I've never been a member of the IRA, so that's just... And you obviously, like, fuck the Pope and the IRA, and it's just like, oh, that stuff, it's your usual, your Irish your Fenianist. We played Middlesbrough away last year, and we had a corner, and my job at the attacking corners was stand on the keeper. So I'm standing there, and Darren Randolph is the keeper, and Middlesbrough fans behind the goal are shouting, "You fucking Fenian Irish." I'm like looking, going, your goalkeeper's Irish. You're cheering for him. Like, it's just a complete lack of education. It's that mob mentality where they're just absolute mindless idiots, and that's all they are, really.
Yeah, very eloquent there from James McClean. Apologies if you have any young ears in the car listening to that.
But sensitive to one word in particular.
Well, there's there used to be a list of 5 words that you couldn't say on American TV, and it turns out now there's only one word that we're going to beep, and that's the C word. So, look, probably should have beeped the S for you this morning as well. But anyway, so look, have a little giggle with your kids, hopefully.
It's hardly surprising from James McClean yesterday talking about this sort of stuff, but it just kind of sums up the ridiculousness of it. These supporters who just go into a frenzy, and it's amazing how one-eyed and focused they are on one individual when they're saying this sort of stuff, because the Randolph example there it's actually kind of comical almost, the way he sums it up, that they actually completely forget the player that's on their own team, and they've just got this tunnel vision towards the opposition player. And we've seen it so many times with the racial abuse we get in football grounds all around England, where it's like, how can you direct that sort of abuse to one player when you are supposed to support a team that has a variety of different races in it? Like, it just hammers at home how it's... Well, exactly.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's completely illogical. I don't know. Keith Brennan says, great James McClean interview yesterday. I'm going to play you one more clip from this. He was in town yesterday for the launch of a sensory hub at the Aviva Stadium, designed to limit sensory influences on young people and adults that can become very distressed by them. James' 2-year-old daughter is yet to be diagnosed with autism, but is showing signs typical of the condition. Here he is talking about what he's learned from that experience.
I think there should be more. Well, it'd be nice if there was more kind of free, public kind of rooms or places where they can go and.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of supermarkets and shopping centres now are doing evenings where the lights are turned down and the music is turned off just to make it a calmer environment. But it certainly feels as though we have a long way to go. Yeah,
that's because. Look, that'd be absolutely brilliant if that was the case, because I can tell you firsthand, going shopping with Willow, like it's a struggle, like because she's seeing people she doesn't recognise. She's out of her routine. She's seeing crowds, and you can see her wee body getting so tense, and it's so like she gets so worked up, and we can't kind of control that. Do you know what I mean? And you see people staring, and. I've probably, look, to be honest, I've probably been guilty in the past because I down to kind of just not knowing and kind of ignorance where you see a child kicking off and kicking and screaming and
you're looking at the parents
around the front on the floor. You do seem to stare, and you probably judge. But now, like seeing it yourself and experiencing it, like you have such a better understanding when you see it. As you don't judge because you know what they're going through, and I think a lot of people judge without knowing. So yeah, I do definitely have experienced, you know, the having wallow out and about in public and how stressful and how challenging it can be for her and for us.
Yeah, pretty powerful stuff from James McClean yesterday. You know, what was it, like 8 hours after Senator Catherine Noone had been making her comments about Leah Varadkar being autistic and then having to apologise for that. So there's a counterpoint to somebody who knows what they're talking about from James McClean. He did also talk about putting a sensory room in his house and the positive impact that's had. A wide-ranging chat that's up as a podcast on offtheball.com and on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, like you mentioned the kind of connection there between the timing of it really after the political storm yesterday from Catherine Noone, and kind of one of the elements of that particular situation was, well, I use all these words and none of them are offensive. And of course, it's not, you can't draw a parallel between that and a football ground, because quite often the fans in the football ground are using things to be the most offensive. But I wonder if there is actually a commonality here, somewhere in the middle ground, where fans of people who are actually well-meaning people go to a football ground and then lose their mind and start throwing around words that perhaps they feel would have no greater significance, but in actual fact they're one of the most horrific things you could use in anybody's circumstance.
I just, you know, there's the same, you wonder about the same level of intellect perhaps being in operation. John Dalton says, total respect for James and having the courage of his beliefs. He's a sound human being. Sorry about the daughter. Respect from the Daisha lad, Ganari and Boherlat. My godson is the same. Potter96 says, before watching as a Stoke fan, the work James McClean does and on off the pitch is sensational, particularly this season in regards to the on the pitch stuff, the bloke of inspiration. And it's sad that he's got abused for standing up for something he believes in. Next point is Jurgen Klopp doubling down, so he ain't taking none of your shit.
Yeah, the high sparrow of winter breaks, Jurgen Klopp, the sports scientist, is coming out. He says that Football Association did not consult sports responsible people over playing replays during this winter break. So Neil Critchley, the under-23s boss, is going to manage the under-23s team in the Shrewsbury replay. He says, Klopp says, could I be here for the game? Of course I could, but that would be a complete misunderstanding of management and coaching. It's not about showing up for the team for 2 days or 1 day training and now I tell the boys what to do. They need their coach and they get their coach, Critch. So the FA obviously described this as a player break, but Jurgen Klopp is going with the players to take a break, dismissing the idea then that he's going to actually watch from the director's box. He says, what difference would it make? Why should I be there? Give me a reason why I should. On the football side, it is clear. And the other thing is, we have to make a stand. Like, there is kind of a preachiness about this, say, talking about the winter break when it's just one extra game, and it is kind of dismissive of the FA Cup. I don't particularly care about the FA Cup. I think the players are well within their rights to take their break and to be rested and whatever. I'm not sure about Jurgen Klopp not being on the sideline, though. He says there's kind of bigger problems in the world. And then it kind of comes to this idea of where is football going. You don't want to make a grander thing out of what might actually be a one-off incident here. But he says that, like, when he talks about the breakaway leagues and the bigger sort of Club World Cup that might be expanded in the European Super League, he says, it's not my idea and I really don't like it, but it looks like it could happen at one point, probably when I'm not in the business anymore. It can happen. But really, actually, this is kind of indicative of what is going to happen in football, that the likes of the FA Cup are just completely pointless. That this is not a money-making racket for the powers that be in football anymore. This is something that is completely irrelevant. It is a footnote. And I'm sorry to your beloved Aston Villa and their cup success last night, but those moments are certainly going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah, I think probably because there's some residual value from TV rights that there will still be, you know, if you win the cup, you might get $1 million, do you get $1.5 million for winning the cup? And I don't know, but for those lower tier teams who are getting the money from the replay, for Shrewsbury, for example, it's a huge thing. But football has decided that it doesn't care about those clubs. They're feeder clubs for the big clubs, and that is a decision that they've made, and we're now seeing how that is most accurately represented and reflected. So
yeah, football will become like the NFL, where people in certain pockets of Europe will have to support a team that doesn't partake or has no possibility of ever partaking in this NFL version, kind of like high school and college football will be in the United States. So the likes of Shrewsbury will never have...
Those players, they're like the best of those players end up in the NFL. So you're watching the best at that age group, whereas you're watching Tier 4, Tier 3, Tier 2 football. And
that's true, yeah.
And all those best players will not have any loyalty to you because nobody had any loyalty to them. It's not a great situation that football is trending towards. The Ed Woodward house targeting last night, this is like a scene from a movie where 20 people apparently were throwing flares and fireworks at Ed Woodward's house.
Ed Woodward's going to die was the caption on the Snapchat video of it. Like, what is actually wrong with people that they think that this is the correct course of action or the right thing to do on any given night, where they're like, we're unhappy with how... Well, you don't know who these people support, but you can make an educated stab that perhaps they support Manchester United, that they decide one evening, we're not happy with how our club is being run, screw the Glazers, let's go to Ed Woodward's house and, what was it, smoke bombs at the house? Like, it's completely OTT. It's the videos being shared of it are actually kind of disturbing. You actually can't really make out that there's 20 people in the video, and it's like something outside a riot, really, outside Ed Woodward's house. It's very, very scary, and he's got kids, and it's a terrible situation for him to be in, regardless of what you think of the football club.
Yeah, come on. This is insane. But it turns out football fans are insane. It goes back to the sectarian abuse of somebody in the opposition team who is exactly the same as the people on your team. Like, football fans just have an insanity around them, and this is a horrific development. And hopefully it has no impact. Like, if Ed Woodward is the wrong person for the job, this hopefully does not in any way speed up him leaving that job. Olympic medals, we're going to win loads. Where's this coming from?
This is an interesting story. So the Grace Note virtual medal table was released yesterday. So Grace Note do this for every Olympics. They picked the order of the top 3 countries in Rio 2016, and 8 of the top 10 medal-winning countries as well that year. They managed to predict that Norway would top the medal table at the last Winter Olympics, and which was kind of unexpected, and they managed to do so. So they've got form. They're predicting 6 medals for Ireland this year at Tokyo.
So Grace Note are the people who effectively run Shazam. Like,
is that right?
I think that they have metadata for music and video, so they would be the ones who would be on the internet going, this video is protected by copyright. I didn't realise they had a sports data company.
Yeah, and like I definitely heard the name before, just the Irish Times. It says they're a Nielsen company and the world's leading entertainment technology company, providing data and content, not just for sport, but also for music and video. So as you mentioned, Shazam. As I say, 6 medals is what Ireland is going to win, according to Grace Note. 2 gold, 1 silver, 3 bronze.
2 gold?
Yeah. Like, I mean, we could come back to our OTB AM crystal ball from a couple of weeks ago.
No goals.
All 3 of you said there was going to be no goals. I said not only would we win a gold, but I said there was going to be multiple goals. Grace Note agrees with me. I think Snida Paspoor and the equestrian show jumping team are going to...
No pressure now, lads.
Yeah, exactly. Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy are going to get a silver. They're going to get beaten by Italy, according to them. There's going to be bronze medals then for Kelly Harrington, Paul McCarthy, also in the question, and Rhys McClenahan. So Mira Potkinen is going to finish ahead of Kelly Harrington, remember the name, and Max Whitelock is going to win gold ahead of Rhys McClenahan. So that would bring our tally to 6. We had 6 as well in London 2012. It would equal our best ever tally. A couple of other people who'll be in, but
don't forget Atlanta. We had those 3 goals in Atlanta. We all count those, right? They're our favourite goals.
If there was
swimming like a fish.
If there was,
wow, look at her fly.
I wish I was old enough to remember. If there was certificates being handed out for 4th place like there was in the community games, we would have 3 certificates. Rory McIlroy is going to finish 4th by all accounts. Kepka, Schaufele and DJ are all expected to win the medals. Then we've got Ronan Byrne and Philip Doyle in the double sculls who are going to be in with a shout. The Irish women's hockey team predicted to finish 5th. So USA then going to top the table. Britain are going to drop dramatically in their medal haul. And you can see from the back page of The Guardian this morning, they're kicking up a fuss about it. The legacy of Super Saturday and all those fantastic icons and heroes of nationalist pride, their legacy is finished.
All the 12-year-olds who were inspired then are 20 now, and it turns out that they weren't inspired at all.
This is undoubtedly the most worried I've been in all my years in the sport, says Malcolm Arnold, the former head coach of UK Athletics. Not enough people picking up javelins as a result of what happened that day.
It's almost like hosting the Olympics has no impact on future sports endeavours. It's almost like it's a complete waste of money. Maybe you should spend your money on coaching instead of facilities. West Ham have done all right out of the Olympics, haven't they? About to be relegated from the Premier League.
And will then relegate further, probably, in the terrible financial state.
Dublin-Mayo build-up. The beef is real between these two teams, primarily because this... Look, is this a rivalry? Was this a rivalry when there was, like, drawn games, when there was free kicks that would have put Mayo in front in stoppage time?
My knee-jerk reaction is that, yes, it was a rivalry.
It was, wasn't it? It felt like a rivalry at the time.
When you dig into the statistics, 19 encounters in the last decade, Dublin won 14 of those, and there were 3 draws. So 2 wins for Mayo.
When was the last one?
2012.
The last one was in 2012. That's a long time.
The overall score was Mayo...
I'm not good at maths, but I think that's 8 years.
Conor McKeown's got a piece in it. The overall score, in points only, Mayo scored 250 points, Dublin scored 251, but in goals it was like 32-12.
Right.
So Dublin's goal scoring machine essentially destroyed this as a rivalry that would swing both ways throughout the decade. Good stuff from End of Ireland quoted in it, talking about...
There's a great picture of him being ripped up by his jersey, Roy O'Carroll, from that 2012 game. And it's like, oh, Roy O'Carroll, get up, nothing wrong with you. And then it's like, oh, End of Ireland had his nose broken in an off-the-ball incident. Like, right. Poor End of Ireland, I'm saying.
I remember Johnny Cooper came on Diarmuid O'Connor in that game with his studs up, and Mayo had a few bad challenges themselves. Killian had a couple. There's a bit of bad blood there. It's one of those things, if they get the chance to go in heavy, they tend to. If they feel they can get away with it, look, there's no love lost there, he says.
Yeah, so that's what you got to do if you're going to win those games. Right, Royal Nugent and Brian Kerr were on the Sunday paper review this weekend with Joe. Here's Royal Nugent warning that despite recent successes, he has serious concerns about the future of Irish rugby.
Where rugby union goes, because it has a desire to keep feeding the beast, which is bringing the best players in, making sure they get paid at a certain level, that the clubs are able to have a professional structure that continues to allow them to develop and the game to develop. But there are consequences of that. And there is a sense that rugby union is in, and rightly so, is on uneven ground at the moment, because there is no concrete foundation as to where it is going over the next. There is no very clear vision where everybody's on the same page saying this is where we're going. And on a sport that's relatively peripheral and relatively small by comparison to soccer, for example, that's a worry. And one bad mistake and the whole thing can come tumbling down. And I understand the concerns of it, because we look at the media rights and you say, well, how are they going to increase? The only way that the media rights are going to increase is by putting them behind the paywall in the context of the Six Nations. If you do that and you take the Six Nations off free-to-air television that is available to the vast majority or everybody in this country and in the UK and in France, you do that, the game will disappear. It won't disappear overnight, but it'll disappear 3, 5, 7 years down the road. We've seen what's happened with cricket. And if you make the wrong decision and allow that to become the financial, the requirement to have the most money now becomes the decision-making process, then you're on a very slippy road. And I think that's the crux of Neil's point, and I don't know enough about the CDC thing to make a valid decision.
Yeah.
But there are concerns about how the game is going to be funded going forward, and Neil's right to draw attention to it.
That's an interesting viewpoint there from Royal Nugent. I'm not sure I agree. The Premier League, obviously, the point about soccer is it's got a much wider playing base and it's a much bigger sport, but the Premier League has not disappeared because it's gone behind a paywall. It's on Sky. People have had to pay for it, and it has had no impact in the success of the league. It's actually made the league bigger. More people want to go to the games. I think
that is because of the popularity of the sport, though.
But I think that the whole notion of pay TV being the death knell for sport, because cricket mishandled a lot of stuff, everybody goes, oh, then all other sports are going to mishandle this as well. Like, what's going to happen is if the Six Nations goes behind a paywall, women's rugby will be free to air on BBC and on RTE, and there will be huge numbers watching those games. There will still be a huge attention around the Six Nations, and rugby fans will be rugby fans. Their ability to grow beyond that might be a little bit smaller, but I don't think that all these sports need mass appeal. in the 1950s, horse racing and boxing and something else in America, baseball, were like these massive sports that like 50 million people would watch a fight every Friday on whatever the American network was. And like, that wasn't the actual boxing audience. That was the audience for what was on TV. It got replaced by, eventually it gets replaced by American Idol. That's not the American Idol audience, that's the TV watching audience. These audiences are becoming massively fragmented, and what needs to happen is you need to put the best players up against each other fairly often in big games, and people will watch them. Look at the success of boxing in the last 4 to 8 years. Big fights happening because they put the best fighters up against each other. And boxing has come through that period where boxing's dead, WWE and UFC are taking over. And actually, boxing has never been in a better position than it is right now since the 50s.
Well, WWE and UFC are also behind paywalls as well, which probably supports your argument a bit. That in the first place, they were actually they had a bit of oxygen behind them. I know WWE used to be free to air and all that. I don't know. I'm kind of more on Nugent's side in this. That I think it would be very, very bad for the game.
I think it's definitely worth a talking point. 8:26 this morning. Let's talk with Nathan Hines. Nathan, good morning to you. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. Yourselves?
Great. I'm glad we got the Skype working. Listen, a quick chat about the game this weekend. Things in Scotland aren't going great at the moment when your best player, Finn Russell, is a little bit late at the bar and ends up not being available for selection. Is that the type of thing that somehow a coaching staff can bring a team together on the back of?
I think it's a little bit unsettling either way. It remains to be seen as to whether it galvanises the team or not, but Finn's obviously not been happy with something and decided that he needed to leave camp. I think he would have been made to play against Racing last weekend anyway, but I'm pretty sure that we'll see this weekend. But luckily they've got Adam Hastings, who's been playing well. But like you said, Finn's been a great player for Scotland the last couple of years, and it'd be sad to see him not play this weekend and weekends after.
How confident are you that Scotland are going to put a performance together? Because their form has been patchy over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, they've got to put the World Cup behind them against an Irish team that's, with a couple of new caps, but still a backbone of experience. So they haven't had the greatest record against Ireland lately either. So it's going to be a tough game for them. Yeah.
What is the truth about where Scotland are in their evolution at the moment? Because, you even think back to the England game last year, and the England game, I would say, was one of the main reasons heading into the World Cup that we were scared of what Scotland might be able to do to us. That second half performance was sensational, but the first half performance was kind of more accurately where they are at the moment, it seems.
Yeah, it's just inconsistent. I think they have got they're very dangerous. Have got that in them, the danger, but very consistent. They don't play. The strategy sometimes isn't safe. So obviously, if a team makes mistakes, you're going to get punished. And when it clicks, it clicks. But like I said, it's a bit inconsistent. And Adam might help that at 10. But it's sometimes you don't know which team you're going to get.
What sort of 10 is he in your view? I think from the sounds of what you're saying there, he's a bit more of a safe option, a safe pair of hands in there.
I think he's a little bit more. You can guide him a little bit more than Finn. Finn is a guy yourself sees it, plays it, and sometimes strategy can be play second fiddle. So I think you can guide Adam a little bit more than Finn, which would be a little bit more to the liking of Gregor, who will be able to put a bit more of a stamp on the game.
Andy Farrell yesterday was talking about the traditions of the best Irish teams having a very strong pack that releases the backs to do their job, and it's a fairly elementary thing to talk about, but I guess when you hear a coach, it's a bit of a challenge really to the forwards to make sure that they are a dominant forward pack and that they do bring an abrasiveness and an aggression to every play. It's kind of what you want your coach to say.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like you said, it's an essential of the game. It's a base of the game, and I think as a forward, you know that. I think that it's your role, and that's what you need to do. But saying that, I think Ireland have got that in them. Scotland are going to be abrasive. They're going to be up for it, but I don't think Ireland will struggle with that in the past. I mean, going up against the best teams in the world and came out on top. So, yeah, it's exactly what you want. You know it's expected of you, and you want to front up every weekend.
What's the Scottish forward pack like at the moment? How well do they actually match up against this Ireland team?
Well, I think they've got some great players in there. Johnny Gray, Gilroy got some abrasive players. Front row is always a bit of a battle, especially with depth. But there are some guys. Barkley's retired, so I'm not quite sure what Gregor's going to put out. But they're going to be stinging from the World Cup, and they'll be motivated for the first game against Ireland. So you can bet they're going to be they're raring to go. But obviously, after the end of the World Cup and the start of not a new campaign, but who do you go with? Do you go with younger guys that are going to give you a bit more spark, or do you go a bit more experience, knowing that you've lost a couple?
Look, we've actually been talking about exactly the same thing, and there's a bit of mix and match from an Ireland perspective in that, like, some of the older players have been retained, some of the younger players have been given the opportunity to get their cap. It's the coaching dilemma. Look, we can hear the bird song in the background there. It's sunny in Montpellier this morning, is it?
I'm actually in Scotland this morning.
All right, okay.
Yeah. So we've got a week off with top 14. We've been given holiday, thank goodness, and I've come back to Scotland to see some friends and recharge the batteries for the rest of the 3 years that left in the season for top 14.
Right. How is life in Montpellier generally then?
It's good. Our results have been a bit ropey, especially away from home. We've had La Rochelle this weekend and started well. Had a awful middle 40 minutes, and then we came through in the end. But with Xavier Garbajosa, head coach now, it's teams starting to find their feet and work out what he expects of them and how he wants to play. So, the last, how many games we've got? Last 10 games of the season, we're in amongst the six. So we just have to make sure we win our home games, as all French teams do, and target a few away wins. Obviously, we haven't had one yet.
You've obviously got a cult relationship with the Leinster fans as a cult hero from your time in Dublin as well. Have you been back to Dublin? Are you still in touch with anybody from that Leinster setup?
Yeah, I sometimes speak to Leah. I haven't spoken to Leah for a while, actually. Jamie I speak to sometimes. I haven't been back to Dublin since, when was it? I can't remember. But the guys, when we played Connacht a couple of weeks back, they thought I played for Ireland because everyone talked to me. But I said just because I played here, and I loved my time at Leinster in Dublin, and it feels like everyone said you just played there for 2 years, and to me as well, it felt like I played at Leinster for more than 2 years, but it was a great time.
Yeah, that Leinster team turned out has a bunch of players on it who've gone on to become coaches. So it must have been an amazing team to be a part of when you think back to the rugby IQ that was on the field for every match.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the coaches talk about it. It wasn't too long ago, actually, about the team, and you look back who played, and it was a pleasure to play for, and it sort of had like you said, it had a collective IQ, collective knowledge, and a bit of it was a special rugby intelligence that was involved with the team that we had there, and even now you can see the younger guys that are in that squad playing well and continuing to carry the flag for Leinster.
Last question, do you expect a close game at the weekend, or is this one of those difficult situations that if Scotland don't start well, the game could get away from them pretty quickly?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I hope it's a close game. We've seen Scotland play, if they play like they did against England, they might come up short. But saying that, if they get their strategy right, I think that they'll be close in there. there or thereabouts. But it's whether they pick the right way to play.
Nathan, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Great to talk to you.
Pleasure.
It's Nathan Hines there, live from Scotland, obviously coaching as part of the Montpellier coaching ticket at the moment, giving us his thoughts ahead of the game. What do you think is going to happen?
I think Ireland are going to win. I think
easily.
I think so.
14 point spread was the last I saw, was it?
Is it 14 point spread? If it still is 14 point spread, I would have thought that Ireland will sneak past that. Not much more past that, but I think it'll be 16, 17 point win for Ireland. Every opening game Six Nations prediction that I will ever make in my entire life is met with a huge degree of caution. But if I'm to bring back 2018 levels of bullishness, Ireland will hammer Scotland this weekend.
Yeah, 13 points, I think.
So it's closed. What's happened, I wonder?
Maybe there's probably you can probably still get a bit of 14 if you hunt it.
I don't know. I wonder what it was pre-Finn Russell. Would it have been a 10, 11 points?
No, I don't think it was that big. He played in the game in the World Cup.
It's interesting that Hines was saying there that, you know, perhaps Scotland play with a lack of caution sometimes. It didn't look like they played with a lack of caution when Ireland came up against them in the World Cup.
Is that not? Are they not like stupidly running the ball from? I mean, you know, we obviously want them. Leinster run the ball from their own 22, so it's obviously not stupid all the time. But they don't exactly kick to touch and then play a pressure game, and they don't. They have Finn Russell in the team.
Yeah,
he's like
and they were unbelievably unimaginative against Ireland.
Glorious playmaker. We were pretty lucky in that first half. A bunch of stuff went our way. The ball literally bounced off the post for us, so that we scored an early try. We killed them early and didn't allow them into the game, and then didn't play great in the second half.
We killed them early, and they couldn't recover late. Like I don't think it was a great sign of Scotland whatsoever that performance that day. I think they were probably better almost against Japan, even though they lost that game as well. They probably showed a bit more fight in that. I can remember that. I was astonished with how Scotland, because there was real fear about that going into that game against Scotland, given how our year had kind of nosedived a poor return against England before.
We were right to be cautious. It turned out.
It turned out we were right to be cautious, but we still hammered them and we were shite.
You can get 14 points or 13 points depending on where you look.
Okay, so obviously having the 14 and having a bit of that.
8:37 this morning. There's some more of our James McClean interview from Off the Ball last night. Here he is talking to Nathan about Stephen Kenny having no problem commanding the respect of the Irish senior squad when he takes charge. They obviously work together at Derry City.
And in terms of what happens next for Irish football and Mick McCarthy leaving and Stephen Kenny coming in, Stephen Kenny give you your debut up in Derry?
He did. Stephen's unbelievable. Like I've managed to work under Stephen for 3 years. And
because there were questions at the time as to Stephen's experience levels and how he could command a dressing room. And like you're in that dressing room, how he could command a dressing room with players.
Let me stop you there. Stephen can command the dressing room. Don't. Right. Stephen's nobody's fault.
It's the wrong term, the English-born players in the Ireland squad. Are they aware of Stephen Kenny?
Probably not, no. Probably not. I think they might be a bit more aware considering the job he's doing now and that he's going to be taking over. So, no, but don't get me wrong, like, Stephen's no pushover. Like, Stephen, you're not allowed it to happen. He's been absolutely brilliant for my career. I've seen him day-to-day basis and how he works, and, you know, I can only say great things. I've always kept in touch with Stephen as well over the years. So, it's a strange situation the way it is, because Mick's obviously a brilliant manager as well, you know. But I guess you'd say the kind of perfect scenario would be we qualify for the Euros. Mick gets to lead the team out at the Aviva in the European Championships. I think he deserves that. It'd be a fitting reward for what he's given the Irish football as a player and as a manager. I think that would be the perfect send off, and then, you know, Stephen's coming in on a high, and, you know, that can only be a positive thing, really.
Yeah, it's all going to work out really well. Ireland reaching the semi-finals of the Euros under Mick McCarthy, and then handing over the reins to Stephen Kenny, who'll take us to the World Cup final.
What a beautiful brand of football. Yeah.
What I think McCarthy's whole career has just been developing as a coach
up until this point.
He's still, like, basically everything he's done has just been his apprenticeship. And now...
This is his masterpiece.
Exactly, this is it.
He's going to paint it on a field in Slovakia and then up the north and then the Aviva, which we will rename...
Mick McCarthy Stadium.
McCarthy Dome.
The Mick McCarthy Dome.
Right, it's 8:40. Tom is here.
Yep, and Aston Villa are in the Carabao Cup final, Ger. Trezeguet scored an injury time winner to beat Leicester by 2-1 on the night at Villa Park and 3-2 on aggregate. Villa were the first winners of the competition 60 years ago, last played in the final in 2010. There was a pitch invasion at full time, but Dean Smith didn't mind.
I thought it was a good game of football with both teams trying to win it, and we've had a couple of chances and they've had a few chances as well. So to go and get the win at the death like we did there, to be taking this club to Wembley, where we've got a great history and a proud history in this competition, I'll be a very proud man leading them out at Wembley.
Villa will face a team from Manchester in the final at Wembley on March 1st. City, of course, take a 3-1 lead into tonight's semi-final second leg with neighbours United at the Etihad Stadium. That game kicks off at 7:45. United boss Ole Gunnar Solskjaer knows, though, his team have a tall order.
It has to be a perfect performance to win with 2 goals against such a good team away from home. So it's not about away goals. We just need to score 2 more than them. When they happen and how it happens, if we concede 2, we need to score 4. So it'd be good not to concede.
Easy game. Meanwhile, United are set to secure the transfer of Bruno Fernandes from Sporting Lisbon today. While off the pitch, United have condemned an attack by fans on the home of Executive Vice Chairman Ed Woodward. Social media footage shows hooded figures throwing red flares over the gates of his house in Cheshire. Woodward and his family were not believed to be at home at the time of the incident. Meanwhile, Liverpool can go 19 points clear at the top of the Premier League later if they can get the better of West Ham tonight at the London Stadium. Sadio Mane will miss the game, which kicks off at 7:45. That's also the start time for the Scottish Premiership fixtures involving Celtic and St Johnstone and Rangers and Ross County. While Leeds went top of the Championship last night after coming from 2-0 down to beat Millwall by 3-2. Marcelo Bielsa's side took advantage of yet another West Brom loss to go top by 2 points. In rugby, Andy Farrell says he's been impressed at how quickly Caelan Doris has settled into the international squad. The 21-year-old Leinster man will win his first cap at number 8 in Saturday's Six Nations opener with Scotland. The informal Ulster scrum-half John Cooney must content himself with a place on the bench, with Farrell opting for the experience of Conor Murray. But he had this to say about Caelan Doris.
I like the fact how he's just himself. He's not fazed by anything. He's come into a group and it's his first time into an international scene, and he is exactly that, being himself. As I said, the training's been competitive. It's been a bit physical at times, and you can see his attributes all over that. He doesn't accept coming second best as far as the contact of the game's concerned, and that's pretty impressive for a young kid.
Meanwhile, in golf, world number 1 Brooks Koepka has been confirmed for the JP Morgan Pro-Am at Adare Manor in July. He joins a star-studded lineup including Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, Shane Lowry and Phil Mickelson, already confirmed for that event. While in tennis, Rafael Nadal is aiming to reach the last 4 of the Australian Open. This year's top seed goes up against 5th seed Dominic Thiem in today's final match on the Rod Laver Arena. They've just taken to the court there. The winner will play Germany's Alexander Zverev, who got the better of Stan Wawrinka in 4 sets in their quarter-final earlier. While the second ladies' semi-final will be between Simona Halep and Garbine Muguruza after they both won their quarter-finals earlier this morning. And finally, in Gaelic Games, IT Carlow go in search of a first ever Sigerson Cup title this evening. They faced DCU at the DCU Sports Grounds, throwing in at 7:30.
You said it was 10 years since Villa were last in the League Cup final.
I sense your excitement here.
Do you remember who they played?
In the 2010 final? I don't actually know.
League Cup final 2010. Actually, can't remember. Chelsea?
Do you know who the Villa manager was?
In 2010, Martin O'Neill?
Yes, correct. So there was an Irish player playing for Villa that day. It was not Chelsea.
The Irish player playing for Villa?
In a cup final. Missed a header to equalise in the last couple of minutes. Villa did not win that game, by the way. They were beaten 2-1 by Manchester United.
It was Manchester United. Heard of them.
Who was the...
Richard Dunn was the header.
Richard Dunn was the header. Darren Gibson on the bench for Manchester United. €100 million, I will give you both, if you can tell me who the Manchester United goalkeeper was.
€100 million?
Yeah.
Massimo Tibi.
No.
Ben Amos.
No.
Edwin van der Sar. Just to
Ben Foster.
No. Ben Foster's on the bench. Van der Sar was rested midweek, and I was like, oh, he's definitely going to play. So it turned out it was their third choice goalkeeper who got the start of the game. I have no idea why. Thomas Kuschek.
Oh, Kuschek. Oh, that is not worth 100 million quid. Sure. I definitely.
You never got it.
We would have got that within 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, you had to get it first to win the money.
That's how these quizzes work.
Right, okay.
Yeah. The United bench was Foster, Neville, Brown, Wes Brown, Gary Neville, Paul Scholes, Darren Gibson, Wayne Rooney, and Mama Biram Diouf.
What?
I don't remember that. Yeah, so Villa won 2.
But of course, it's more recent than that since cup finals.
What?
It's more recent than that since general cup finals, obviously, for Villa.
Yeah, well,
but not League Cup, obviously.
No, exactly. He's had 10 years since the last.
But I know that. But I mean, it's like the feeling of a one-off final for Aston Villa. It's not 10 years old.
No, but the trouble is that the last time they were in an FA Cup final, they ended up getting beaten and relegated. So it's like,
yeah,
this is all very good, but it has the bang of the relegation season off it. Oh, this team wasn't.
At least there's a bit of a gap this time. You know what I mean? Like, it's in March, so you can still enjoy that for a while.
It's true. It's a fair point.
I would have given up that FA Cup title just to see Tactics Tim celebrate. But it was Sherwood for the FA Cup final, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To see him celebrate as an FA Cup
throwing
manager.
down his gilet.
Yeah. He was not that bad a manager at Villa. We've had worse. 8:46. The Lidl-sponsored Comortas Pella Poli O'Shea takes place from the 21st to the 23rd of February. If you've never been, it's an absolutely brilliant weekend. The whole kind of peninsula comes alive with football teams. It's supported by McKeever Sports, EJ Menswear, Kerry County Council Tourism Unit and Lee Strand Milk. Dublin's Martha Byrne spoke to us last week after the competition's launch. You can check out the full piece on our YouTube channel. She's completed a master's in dietetics, so she's a dietitian. Here she is on the importance of nutrition in sport, and particularly female sport.
We have a fantastic nutritionist. I think sports nutrition is quite different to kind of, I suppose, dietetics is more of a kind of clinical side to it. But there's definitely kind of things that you can take and bring across into sport. Like I think it's nice. Like I think probably female athletes probably undereat a little bit. Like it's great to know when you see actually how much you need to be eating, and then you're like, oh, I can afford to eat X, Y, Z. Like it's great.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So is this across the board? Are you noticing this with your teammates that they're undereating?
I think like there's like a fantastic bit of research going on at the minute. I know there's Danielle Logan, UCD, and she's kind of looking into, because I suppose it's an area that's really under researched because it's predominantly males who are used in studies. Like there's not a huge amount of people looking into how females are eating and how it's affecting their performance, because females are so different. Like their physiology is so different, and I think just the way it's been done so far, I think there's a huge amount to be researched into females, how they eat and how our needs are different to males. So I think that'll be something that'll come in the next few years.
So we've basically taken the model of the ideal sports diet and taken it from men and just applied it to women is how it's worked.
Yeah, and like it's certainly very similar, but I think like females are different, their physiology is different, they go through different things in the month and in the year, and I think that there's potentially I suppose just like different parts or different bits of research that need to be done before painting the two males and females with the same brush.
Okay.
I think.
Is there, like, this is perhaps coming across as a very elementary question, is there different food types that you've noticed differences in that perhaps men should be eating that women shouldn't, or is it just purely volume?
Not just volume, but I think kind of like things like iron and, you know, vitamin D and those type of things, which maybe females need to be having a bit more of, just given the way females are built, female physiology and all that. But certainly not kind of like the carbohydrates and the protein. Maybe it's more just volume, but
it's interesting. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's probably a critical eye or an educated eye that you cast on some of the teams you've been in. Like, where are Dublin at, where are Coola at when it comes to the actual nutrition that the players go through and their sustenance, I guess?
Yeah, I think certainly with Dublin, like, we've always had like fantastic education around nutrition, and even in like the last 2 or 3 years we have Kate in, our nutritionist, who always makes sure that she's kind of constantly educating us, and she's always there as like a resource to ask. I suppose with Coola, like, the girls themselves, like, if you're interested in sport, you're going to be interested in performance and how you can like optimally kind of like eat, I suppose, or like the nutrition around performance. So people are looking into that themselves. So it's not that people are uneducated, but I think kind of if it's your kind of area of passion, like, you're kind of take more of an interest in it. So I think as more research is done and it's kind of more promoted or like put out there, that people have more access to it, that it might start to affect performance differently. But have to wait and see.
And do you believe in supplements for inter-county GAA players?
Yeah, there's like the likes of creatine, caffeine, like they're all like rigorously tested and they've been proven to be very effective. So like I'd always have a cup of coffee before every training and every match, and so would like a lot of the girls. Creatine has become another thing, and they're kind of like performance, kind of like specifically for performance. But then like other supplements like vitamin D and stuff like that, I think they're really important. So yeah, I wouldn't say, I know supplements can sometimes be painted in like a very negative light, but like there's a real place for supplements in sport and supplements in life. So.
Right, okay. And are you taking creatine often? Is there people in your team taking creatine?
Yeah, and like it's not just our team, like it's just across the board. Yeah. Like creatine is, there will be people taking it, yeah.
Right, okay. Is it just during different sections of the season? Is it during the season, just before your training session and things like that?
Yeah, you kind of build it up in your system, and then you can like continuously take it throughout the season. Just kind of helps with like power and strength, that type of thing.
Right, okay. Very interesting. I didn't know half that stuff as well, especially how we're so far away from actually realising what nutrition or what the ideal nutrition is for women athletes in this country.
I think like it's not that we don't, like we're really far away from it. I just think that it could be kind of fine-tuned a little bit specifically for females.
Right, you can get that full thing up on our YouTube channel, and a bit more from that to come a little bit later on as well. So our new American football newsletter is now live with content from The Snap. It's our weekly live show, as well as podcast fixtures, results, reports from games, stats and facts, early bird tickets to events, and both long and short form video content around all things NFL, the college game and the local grassroots game here in Ireland. It's called OTB Club Gridiron. And you can subscribe for all this goodness and much more at offtheball.com/Club Gridiron. That's offtheball.com/Club Gridiron. Now, let's preview the Super Bowl. I'm delighted to say we've got Mike Carlson with us this morning. Mike, how you doing?
Okay. Yeah, I've got to watch that video, I suppose, from the Snap. It's probably pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I think all our helmet jokes made it in, so the edits weren't too severe.
I'm wondering about this drinking a cup of coffee before you start the match, though. I mean, how do you make it till halftime?
Yeah, well, you probably don't have to. You can take a break. Certainly in American football, you can just do it right
slide
down the
into the blue tent,
That's what it's for, right? Come here. When last we spoke, you hadn't yet made your mind up about whether or not you were going to come down on one side or the other. Have you finalised your pick for this game yet, or what are the?
I'm pretty much leaning into the 49ers now. It'll be on Friday. I'll do it for sure. But I think as I add things up, it's probably going to be the 49ers. I have to say, I went back. I've been picking every game of the season, for NFL UK or on my Patreon site for 15 years now, and I'm 6-8 in the Super Bowls. I mean, I've done relatively well for the rest of the seasons, being over 2/3, but 6-8 on Super Bowls. So I would take whatever I say with a grain of salt. And honestly, I think this is the best balanced Super Bowl. I can see it going any number of ways, but it's so close that, if you were gambling it, I would probably say avoid the point spread, take the money line where the odds would be better for you, because, it could well be a very close game, but I think when a team wins, it's actually going to be by more of a margin than that 1.5 points.
That makes sense, that people can't make their minds up, but that when one team actually asserts dominance, that it's unlikely to be a single point swing at the end. When you say you've maybe not necessarily had a great record picking, what I hear is regression to the mean, and so therefore you're going to start getting more right over the next while. As a Niners fan here, I'm hanging my hat on that. Come here, why are you leaning into the 49ers? What is it that over the last couple of weeks has made you think, actually, I can see how these teams
I was looking back at the season, and they've basically been in every game. They had that loss to Seattle, which they could have won with a made field goal. And Kansas City has been more in and out. They lost a game to Green Bay that they probably should have won. They won a game in New England that they probably should have lost. And I can just see this scenario whereby the Niners defense is able to hold them in check enough to let their offense score some points. If it's a big high-scoring game, then Kansas City, I think, is probably going to win. Even though you look at that New Orleans-San Francisco game where it was basically a shootout, but they required George Kittle to make one huge play in that game in order to win it. The difference between the teams, I think, is more consistency from the Niners and the big play ability of Kansas City, and that's what they have to keep in check. It's really going to be Tyreek Hill or McCole Hardman or maybe somebody else, if you're over defending those two guys who stretch the field on you. But that's where Kansas City holds the advantage on them. I think I said during the snap thing, I was trying to figure out how you cover those two guys with the defensive backfield they have, and I was suggesting that I might put Richard Sherman on Travis Kelce. As I think about it, I think they do a very good job of messing up the middle for teams because their linebacking is very quick. Jay Greenlaw and Fred Warner are both very quick. And looking at teams that have done well against the Chiefs, Kelce is really the third thing you have to worry about, because as long as you keep him in front of you, then you can give him his catches and even his yards, but you're not going to get burned for a lot of touchdowns. And once you get into the red area, Hill and Hardman are much less effective because you can't stretch the field when you're inside the 20-yard line, and that's where your defense then can try to concentrate on Kelce, try to concentrate on the secondary receivers, stop the run. I think it's a fascinating chess game, and we're talking about the young quarterbacks coming in, but it's also, in a sense, a battle between old coaches in terms of Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo on one side, Eric Bieniemy, and young coaches, Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh on the other side. Yeah, and I'm not a huge believer in that the experience is that important, but certainly Kyle Shanahan's experience in that 3 blown lead Super Bowl against the Patriots for Atlanta is going to register here. And I think I said yesterday on another show, I think if Kansas City get to 30, they can win. I think if you hold them under 30, then the 49ers have a very good chance of winning, which is pretty much the same thing I said about Atlanta against the Patriots.
And which was right.
Turned out that way.
Yeah.
Do you think Andy Reid is, I'm not sure, is he the best coach to ever won a Super Bowl, but certainly one of the more legendary, one of the coaches with the most narrative around him, and just kind of like, could he be a potential Hall of Famer here? Like when you talk about the people who are in his company, the amount of wins that he's had as a coach, it is astonishing that he hasn't got a Lombardi trophy yet.
Yeah, I think he's the second best coach to never win a Super Bowl. Bud Grant of the Vikings being first on my list. I think he's a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame eventually. He has been a very good coach for a long time. He's very, very good at team building. He's a great offensive mind. He continues to adjust and to adapt. In this case, they knew. I think they knew what they had in Patrick Mahomes. They didn't hesitate to get rid of Alex Smith and go to him when the opportunity came up. And really the only negative on Andy's resume is that he hasn't won the big one. It's not the only. The second negative is that he's traditionally not been a great game managing coach. He's had problems managing the clock, controlling the ball, not knowing when to hurry up, not knowing when to slow down. But this year the Chiefs have been much better at that, although all the things about possession, a lot of people are saying, well, 49ers run the ball well. If they can run the ball, keep Mahomes off the field, they can win. The problem with Patrick Mahomes is he doesn't need to be on the field for 5 minutes to get a touchdown. He can do it in a minute and a half if he has to, which we saw in the playoffs against the Texans.
Yeah, that bit doesn't really... Like, the 49ers could have 40 minutes possession and they could lose this game in a blowout because Mahomes can have 3 passes touchdown, 2 passes touchdown, 1 pass touchdown.
And that's what makes it such a difficult game to call. It's really down to how much faith you have in Patrick Mahomes being able to do that, or how much faith you have in the 49ers being able to stop him from doing that. And if you stop him passing, then we saw 2 weeks ago that he'll run the ball on you and take advantage of that. And people go back to how spectacular that run is, and really the most impressive thing about it was how amazingly aware he is of what's going on the field around him and where the opportunity lies. And, you know, when he took that run, it wasn't like, oh, I got to get out of here and do something. He was sitting there waiting. And when he didn't have a pass, it was, well, I've got that left-hand lane I can take. I'm going to take it now because there isn't going to be any pass open.
I actually think that the play in the previous game against Houston, where there's a similar run to the left and he toe drags to make sure he doesn't break the plane of the line of scrimmage and just flings the ball to Kelsey, who the one part of Kelsey's body it's in the end zone that he's going to score the touchdown. That's, to me, is actually an even more impressive one because it shows all of that kind of awareness, lateral movement, ability to throw at the same time. And to be honest, I can't see any way to slow that down. I can't see any way, any defence in football at the moment, not just the 49ers, how anybody could stop him, that he's kind of cresting to a level that is, you know, Kobe Bryant-esque, is like Leo Messi, is Michael Jordan. It just feels like this is the coronation of a new king in world sport that we're going to watch this weekend, and that's why I think the most likely result is that he will carry that team to victory.
Oh, and there's the 49ers fan saying, I can't, it's hard to argue against that. And like I said, my defense on this would be to sell out to stop them getting the big play, try to keep everything underneath, and then figure that once they get into the red area, you can keep them more under control. And that's it. You know, on that run you're talking about with Mahomes, if the NFL had VAR, it probably would have been overturned.
Maybe. It did look like he just had enough awareness.
Oh, he was. Yeah, it's weird. The offside rule should be like that. You know, you only have to have one little part of your body onside to be onside, rather than the other way around.
Exactly. It would transform the game and make everybody much more happy about it because you could actually see the evidence of it with your own eyes. From a defense perspective, just very briefly on this, how do you sell out? Like, what does that mean to make sure that those big plays aren't gone? It's like you have you double team Tyreek Hill. You match up physically against Travis Kelce and you hope that whatever corner is on an island against Hardman or Sammy Watkins can survive?
That's pretty much it. You know, if you stay in zone, if you play, say, 3 deep in the zone, then they will kill you underneath because it's really hard, especially Travis Kelce. You know, he just finds the area in his zone so well. So you have to double Tyreek Hill or at least have a safety behind who's ever covering him. And then the question is, do you trust your other guy to run with McCole Hardman, who's probably not going to beat you by himself, but all he needs to do is 1 or 2 plays, and that's pretty much all they ask of him in terms of the passing game. If you look back, he doesn't have many multiple catch, more than 3 or 4 catches a game all season long. And then, you know, what they took against the Patriots in the conference championship last year, what they took in the playoffs this year, is Damian Williams or somebody coming out of the backfield because you're playing everybody deep to stop that. So the swing pass or the wheel route out of the backfield will work for them. They might even try running the ball. But San Francisco, I think, both these teams, will probably stay pretty much in a 4-man front, not blitz too often, and their 4-man fronts will be probably, in San Francisco's case, sufficient to stop the run. In Kansas City's case, because there's so much influence and misdirection in San Francisco's game, I don't know if their line will be quick enough to cope with that particularly well. It'll be interesting to see which guys play because I think we'll see a lot less of the big beefs like Mike Pennell and a lot more of the smaller, quicker guys up front.
Mike, enjoy your trip to Miami. I hope you have a great time and the weather's a bit better than it is here.
I'm looking forward to it. I think I've lined up a bar for Ireland, Scotland on Saturday morning. And Saturday morning is a really civilized time to watch rugby.
Yeah, we should maybe try and get the kickoff times fixed for it. Mike, great stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys.
Mike Carlson giving us some thoughts there ahead of the Super Bowl, which kicks off. Is 11:40 kickoff on Sunday night?
Something like that.
It's late.
What's your plan?
I went to bed before the conference championship game and got up, and that worked all right. So go to bed, get up.
Get up for the second half.
I'm getting up for the whole thing.
Well, obviously, but...
yeah, I mean...
Well, like I'm talking about a 5 o'clock alarm.
Well, last year I just took the
day
one
off.
But
well, obviously, if you're somebody who gets up at a regular hour, of course you get up for the full thing. But for a 5 o'clock alarm, second half only, I think.
Right, 9:05 here this morning. We're back with episode 1 of our new podcast. It's the Classic Game Club. Catchy title. Well done, lads.
Cheers.
It's like the Breakfast Club, only for classic games, right?
Exactly, that's it.
Yeah. Inspired by the 80s movie of the same name. It's the Classic Game Club. We'll explain what it is after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. Off the ball.
It was like Rog Cam every time you kicked.
Yeah, it was tough. It was, and again, what you learn from that. Myself and Dave got together after that World Cup, and I said it to him. I said there was a couple of kicks where I'm lining up and behind the posts, like Rog is there, and he said, next time that happens in a game, I said, I want you to have him as your target, and he just put the ball right between his eyes.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1. This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB AM.
So the Classic Game Club launched last week, and this week's edition we're going to be looking back at Arsenal against Manchester United 2005. That is the Battle of Highbury, the tunnel incident involving Patrick Vieira and Roy Keane. You can catch that on Friday morning on OTB AM. Here's last week's edition, Kerry against Dublin, the 2013 All-Ireland football semi-final. One of the things that kind of gets lost in this pre-game was just the revenge for 2011 that was on the table. It doesn't really get mentioned much in the match commentary, but it is Jim Gavin's first year against Eamon Fitzmaurice's in his first year. So you've got a situation here where it kind of feels that the slate is clean from 2011. And then kind of separate to the whole game in the context of it is that it's the summer of Sean Kavanagh. It's the summer of his pull down on Conor McManus, and it's something that we're going to discuss quite a bit here because it feels like a different sport at times, and the deliberation that people took in terms of pulling people down whenever they were within eyeshot of goal.
There was one other bit of context, I think, to this in terms of the historical significance. This game, within the previous year, both Paudie O'Shea and Kevin Heffernan had died, which I remember being very much a part of the build-up that, as always, when Dublin played Kerry, there was a huge amount of focus on what happened during the 70s and the 80s, and I think that just added to it as well, that the two legends, the two greatest figures, perhaps, of that era had passed on in the previous 12 months.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I completely forgotten about that it had kind of taken on a fully historical context. But like, this is better than anything of their era, isn't it? Is this like, I know it's not fair to compare two different eras, but even in the intervening years since then, there was almost a sense of managers being naive. Even Jim Gavin showed elements of naivety to it, and all of a sudden the ball is thrown in and it just explodes into madness immediately. And I think that's part of it. Two managers that are in their first year, it's quite evident.
Well, it probably showed that first, definitely 20 minutes, how Dublin had developed from the previous 4 years from the start of the Earwigs game, where Kerry got the fast start in 2009, killed Dublin, and Dublin had no bottle, had no backbone to come back into the game at all. They just let Kerry run riot. Where this time, even though Kerry kept scoring goal after goal after goal in 2013, like, Dublin stuck with them. They got the next point every single time. They just kept going. That they never looked like a team who were beaten. Even when Kerry were totally dominant, playing by far the better football, it was very much, it felt like a clash of two styles in a way, in that you just had...
Do you think so?
I just thought, because, particularly in that first half, where you had the artistry of Gooch, just running the show and everyone buzzing off him, and like Donncha Walsh was brilliant at times in that game as well, whereas Dublin just seemed like a machine of, we're just going to put our heads down and stay in this game no matter how we do it.
At the same time, though, there is the sort of erratic nature to that Dublin team, which I really like. I think it's the...
Oh, it was far better.
it's the...
When you felt like it had a chance, it was a wonderful time.
And they would always give you a chance, it seemed. And like, this is the environment that I think we see the best version of Diarmuid Connolly, like swinging balls over left, right and centre. It's brilliant stuff. Just some of the matchups here, like you mentioned Donncha Walsh. Donncha Walsh against Jack McCaffrey was something that flies under the radar here.
First 40 seconds of the game, ball breaks out on the left-hand side. McCaffrey head down, Donncha Walsh head down, full speed for about 60 metres. It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing, and actually one of the things that I found strange watching it is, like, it's only 6.5 years ago. In my head, for some reason, Jack McCaffrey shouldn't be on a pitch with Tomás O'Shea.
It is mad, isn't it?
Just Tomás O'Shea. I was like, this was Tomás last season.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like they're two different generations, and like they are in a way in that, like, Tomás is the best halfback of the first 10 years, and Jack McCaffrey's probably the best halfback of the second 10 years. But there they are, sort of speeding by each other.
If I can just go back a little bit further as well before getting into the technicalities of the game. I think it was important to note as well the fact that obviously Pat Gilroy stepped down the year before. Jim Gavin comes in. Now we all know Jim Gavin now, he's free man of Dublin, he's won all these titles 5 in a row with Dublin, but coming in at that stage, everybody thought, right, well, this man can do it under 21 level. He's won 2 under 21 All-Irelands, but it's different being a senior manager. But I do think, you have to kind of give a nod to the succession plan that Dublin had there in place. I was looking at Jim Gavin's 2 under 21 teams going into, from 2010, 2012. 2010 team, you had Rory O'Carroll, Johnny Cooper, James McCarthy, Dean Rock. The 2012 team, you had Kevin O'Brien, who obviously got hooked very early in that game. I will touch on that, though, in more detail. Jack McCaffrey, Davy Byrne, Ciarán Kilkenny and Paul Mannion. So, the succession plan there, I don't know about Eamon Fitzmaurice when he came in there and what kind of players he'd worked with before he'd come in and taken over the senior setup, but what Dublin had there in place was really excellent when you look back at it now. You look back as well at that year 2013, Ballymun Kickham's got to the club final, and you had the likes of James McCarthy, Dean Rock, Philly McMahon in that team. And I remember being at that final. They threw away that final against St. Bridget's. They took they'd scored 2 goals and a point within the first 15 minutes, and Ballymun should have won out. They should have closed out that club final. But I think the experience that those players gain from games like that, and then if you move it on to the 2013 league final, when Dublin beat Tyrone, and I actually I noted one of the report, Martin Bretney's report in the Irish Independent that year, that 2013 final. 2 points by Dean Rock, who replaced Bernard Brogan in the 58th minute, 1 by Jack McCaffrey in the final 4 minutes, steered Dublin to victory after they trailed 6 times in the second half. And I think that was gave us an indication of what was to come, not just in 2013, but throughout Jim Gavin's reign. Dublin teams finishing strongly in the last 10 minutes. Whereas we would have seen, and I know myself, the heartbreak of being a Dublin fan, how we would have caved in matches like that for the 2 or 3 decades previous.
Well, even obviously 2009, but even the previous year in 2012, Gilroy's last game, that sort of 10 minute before half-time, 10 minute after half-time spell that Mayo had, where they absolutely blitzed them. Well, I think they led by 10 points on 50 minutes, having just point after point where Dublin just couldn't get out of their own half, just kept giving it away so simple, whereas that never happened here.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting that you mentioned the Ballymun lads as well. It's definitely something that I picked up on, the fact that Philly and Dean Rock come off the bench and make a huge difference in this particular semi-final. We do want to get into some of the moments of the match here. We'll start with you, Nathan. What is the defining moment of the 2013
What did I say?
semi-final? You said... I think you said Declan O'Sullivan's miss.
Declan O'Sullivan's miss, yes. His wide on 68 off the left, which you would have off his left foot, you would have expected him to kick. And it was hanging, and it was hanging, and it was hanging, and it felt at that moment like Kerry are just about to go back in front. So I think it's 68 and a half minutes. You're thinking, it is. At this stage, every point is going to be absolutely pivotal. And you fancy him every day of the week because he'd been having a fine game. Puts it, just drifts and ever so slightly to the right and wide, and Dublin goes straight up the other end of the pitch, and Kevin McMahon scores a goal.
That's it. It is Declan O'Sullivan's.
That's the moment.
100%. If that goes over, it's amazing how that one moment can actually turn it from what would have been a 2-point lead into a 7-point deficit at come the end of the game. Now, in the middle of that...
I'm disagreeing here with you.
Okay, you go ahead first before I make the case for this again.
The 17th minute of the game, I was watching it back last night. Dublin were getting murdered in the first. The first thing I noticed was the first couple of kick passes from Kerry, Colin Cooper, and who was he passed to O'Donoghue, and Anthony Marr kick passing to Crowley, and they were within the first 90 seconds. I was like, wow, this Kerry team are on their game here today. Absolutely unbelievable. But anyway, progressing from there, Dublin, they looked nervy at the start. Paul Flynn gave the ball away. There was a couple of little silly mistakes within the Dublin performance. But Dublin were getting swamped at the back. Kerry were just all over them. Colin Cooper, as we've mentioned already, he was like a magician in that first half. But I thought Ger Brennan was having an awful game. And I hate saying this because I know Ger very well, and he's a lovely fan, but he was having a terrible game. And in fact, I thought that axis of O'Carroll and Ger Brennan in the centre of the Dublin defence were absolutely getting destroyed. And in the 17th minute, Jim Gavin made a substitution. It was a very brave thing for a manager in his first year to do, to make a substitution so early. And it was Kevin O'Brien being taken off, Philly McMahon coming on. And then what he did was then he put Johnny Cooper onto James O'Donoghue, and he put Philly McMahon onto Darren O'Sullivan, and that changed the game. Now, it didn't have such an immediate impact in that first half where, you know, where it was going to. I thought with that change, the results from that change were more evident in the second half, and it was really Dublin's defensive performance in that second half, I think, that won. Fair enough, they got the scores up the field and all that, but it was the defensive performance from then on that I thought changed the game.
We started to see this sort of stuff, which was probably more of a feature of the 15 final, the crowding around the Kerry players so effectively. And when Donaghy went into the fray, it just became a free-for-all for the Dublin defenders. They loved that. It was fishing a barrel, really. So I'm on Nathan's side here on this one. I think the Declan O'Sullivan wide, it's been spoken about so much in the intervening years. It's still something that you just wonder if it had gone to the left a little bit more, what might have happened. Dublin fans would argue, well, there was a 7-point deficit at the end and their fitness was clearly superior, so it might not have mattered. But I want to mention one other moment here, and it is after about 10 minutes of the second half, I want to say, when Colm Cooper is going through in goal, pokes the ball along the grass, past a pack of Dublin footballers until Johnny Cooper's leg comes flailing out. Johnny Cooper on a yellow card and stops Gooch in his path through on goal, and somehow Johnny Cooper escapes a second yellow card. Now, he's somebody who knows all about a yellow card in an All-Ireland final, and we saw the impact that made in 2019. In 2013, I think that's the changing of the game. I don't think Dublin make the All-Ireland final if Johnny Cooper gets sent off, which he should have done. Welcome back. That was the Classic Game Club. You can catch the full thing back on offtheball.com, youtube.com as well, /offtheball. Now, last night on Wednesday Night Rugby, the Irish Independent's Rory O'Connor discussed a change in atmosphere around the Irish rugby team.
So if there hasn't been a huge turnover in terms of playing staff, then is this almost Andy Farrell putting out a message that the players weren't the problem at the World Cup? It was the style of play, and he can transform the style of play.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a sense of that they're going to, there's just a different vibe around it this week. And I suppose that's always going to be the case when there is a new coach, even if he is part of the old regime, as was a couple of his assistants. There's definitely, there was music, there's Little Nas was blaring out of speakers beside training when they were doing their warm-ups today, which I don't think there was ever music before training in the old regime. They were throwing AFL balls, slitters, footballs around. There is a bit of a sense of fun that maybe wasn't there before. Obviously, that goes out the window if they lose to Scotland the weekend. And this is all, it's all speculation as to what's going on behind the scenes. Because I do remember that everything was really positive in the week they got hammered by New Zealand at the World Cup, and we almost got convinced that they were on the right track. So there is, you can read too much into that sort of stuff. But yeah, there is a sense, talking to players today in the kind of after the team was named, that they are trying to move things on a little bit. And I think that the selection, although it's not groundbreaking across the board, I do think their back row with Doris at 8 and Stander move at the 6. Doris is more of a footballer. He's more of a heads-up player. Stander tends to run into brick walls an awful lot. Doris, it's his first cap, so we can't expect too much. But I think we're going to be seeing Caelan Doris in that jersey for the next decade, pretty much. And he is that footballing number 8 in the mould of, say, Kieran Reid or Jamie Heaslip.
Rory O'Connor speaking on Wednesday Night Rugby last week. Full piece, as ever, available on youtube.com /offtheball. Just watching proceedings now at the moment down in Melbourne in the Australian Open. Nadal 4-3 up against Dominic Thiem in the first set. Nadal 40-love up in the 8th game of that set. So Nadal doing well. This will be break point for Rafa Nadal. He's got 3 break points obviously there, and he has got that as 5-3 in the first set. Colin Buhick is here. What's the crack?
How are you? You well?
Have you been watching much of this?
Yeah, obviously on social hours, 11 hours ahead and all that, but no, I'll be keeping up to date with it online. But this Nadal team game is going to be really interesting because team's playing brilliantly at the moment. I don't know if you watched the end of year ATP finals there in London, but he beat Djokovic and Federer with ease, and he lost the final to Tsitsipas. But team is brilliant. He got to the French Open final last year against Nadal as well. He's 26. He's playing the tennis of his life. Wouldn't be surprised if this went the distance, actually, Nadal team. But I do think Nadal will prevail eventually.
It's been some week for Rafa Nadal. I think the Nick Kyrgios game was probably, maybe not even, it was a fantastic match, but I think it was just the atmosphere around it. Kyrgios wearing the Kobe jersey, everything that Kyrgios has done throughout the tournament, huge donations towards the Fires. This has been the tournament that Kyrgios has become, I don't want to say beloved, but he's certainly gone from not hated. From being hated to being not hated at the very least. And I think Nadal almost brought that out of him and complimented him in the aftermath of their encounter.
Oh, there'll be a documentary about the two of them on Netflix in about 15, 20 years' time about how they was this. there was this grudging respect eventually, because it was the exact same scoreline as their Wimbledon encounter last year. So Nadal won that. It was literally a mirror scoreline. But this time around, it was different because at Wimbledon, Kyrgios was just messing with Nadal and taunting him and playing up to the character of Nick Kyrgios, let's say. But at this year's Australian Open, he just let his tennis do the talking. And it was a brilliant match that probably deserved to go the distance, probably deserved to go to 5 sets. And there was a point at the end of the third set that I guess you could say the majority of times Kyrgios sort of thrown it in. And he was up against it, and he saved break points by hitting really, really brave shots that took a lot of balls, and he did it.
Well, why is he able to let the tennis do the talking all of a sudden, Nick Kyrgios? Has he actually just got better as a tennis player on top of actually parking the whole act of being a spoiled brat sometimes?
It's the latter he did there, because he's always had the ability and the talent, because he displayed that as a teenager. He was getting to the latter rounds of senior men's competitions, which isn't easy to do, and he was beating the big three early on. So the talent was never in question, but what he's doing now is just riding the crest of a positive PR wave, because January 2020 will go down as one of the great months for Kyrgios, and I say months as opposed to great years, because he's a month-by-month player, because he'll probably disappear now. You won't see him for a couple of months, but it's gone well for him because his stance on the bushfires was really commendable. I mean, whatever opinion you have about the way he would donate money, which is for every ace I'll donate $200 to the bushfire relief fund, and you could argue that why doesn't he just donate the money? But I mean, at least that was one thing he did. He started off, and Alexander Zverev, who just qualified for the semi-finals, beating Stan Wawrinka, former champion here, he's donating 10 grand per win, per round, and if he wins the entire Australian Open, he'll donate all the money to the bushfire relief fund. Now, Kyrgios started all of this, the people doing this kind of thing. So that went well, and the Australian public took to him a bit after that, took to Kyrgios a bit. As I said to you last week, they don't really like him. I mean, he's no Bernard Tomic in terms of Australians really hate Bernard Tomic because he just fundamentally does not try half the time. But with Kyrgios, he tries a little bit more, and he's more talented anyway, but people don't like his attitude in Australia. So that's helped him with the Bushfire Relief Fund, and the fact then he's played some brilliant tennis. His third round win over Khachanov, that was the longest match I think he's ever played, Kyrgios. And again, he showed a lot of courage and determination to come back from a rough patch in that match. So he has the ability, but he'll never have the consistency to win a Grand Slam or anything. But
you don't think he'll win one?
I don't think so, no. I don't. I really.
Surely he will win the last.
He'll probably get to a final. I'd say he'll get to a final. But the problem is, if you looked at what he did in this Australian Open, which has gone really well for him, and it's an amazing thing because he's eliminated there in the fourth round, and people think he did brilliantly, and everyone's saying like it's been a brilliant tournament, and really he just got eliminated in the last 16. But he's just doing better, so much better on his own terms, or by his own standards. I think he'll get to a Grand Slam final, but the problem is, even when he has a straightforward opponent that he should be beating, that's a complete outsider, that's ranked outside the top 150 in the world, he'll probably go through a period in that match where he'll struggle for about 4 or 5 games, or maybe even drop a set. And you wouldn't trust him to go through with it all the way to a Grand Slam final. I mean, the furthest he's gone in a Grand Slam is the quarter-final. That was in 2014. He got to the Wimbledon quarter-final.
He's underachieved, I think it's fair to say.
Massively underachieved, but yeah.
Tomorrow morning, big one, Federer against Djokovic.
Yeah,
around this time tomorrow morning it'll be underway.
Yeah, we'll be watching it here. Big one on paper. I can't see anything but a pretty straightforward Djokovic win. Djokovic hasn't dropped a set yet so far. He dismantled Milos Raonic yesterday in the quarter-final. Consider this is still the domination of the big three, and now it's really going to become the big two, because I think Roger Federer was kind of starting to slip away now this year. But Raonic beat Stefanos Tsitsipas in the third round, and a pretty straightforward victory. And Tsitsipas won the ATP finals. And then Raonic comes up against Djokovic, and Djokovic dismantles Raonic. So there's still that massive chasm, despite all the talent coming through. There's still that chasm. So Djokovic, the only problem Djokovic has had so far at the Australian Open is his contact lenses. He's having problems, they keep him falling out, and they're really bothering him, and he's making kind of a big deal of it when it happens, that he's like gesturing to the whole crowd like, my eyes are in trouble here.
And how are the crowd responding to that?
They're just kind of laughing it off at him, because he's kind of melodramatic in that sense. Because that's his only opponent so far, is his own contact lenses, because he's just sweeping aside everyone. Straight sets victories.
If the contact lenses stay in, is there going to be a gulf between him and Federer tomorrow? Is there going to be a gulf between him and his final opponent?
I think even if his contact lenses fall out, there'll still be a gulf, because Federer has made life pretty hard for himself. Like, everyone knows now about that match against Tennis Sangren, which is amazing to face 7 match points It also shows the quality of Federer, like his endurance. Like he's done this several times where he's faced multiple match points in matches throughout his career. As far back as 2003 in Cincinnati, when there was a video went up yesterday, he saved 7 match points. So he's done this all the time.
But then you flip it and you look at Djokovic in the final of Wimbledon last year, which was the exact opposite scenario. It wasn't quite 7 match points, it was 3, wasn't it?
He lose 2. He had 2 championship points and he threw them away. But like Federer has an amazing ability to respond to adversity, and that's rare, that thing that happened to him in Wimbledon last year where he was in the driving seat and he lost it. But the reason I'm saying that in 2003 he came back from 7 match points down in Cincinnati, but now he's 38. He doesn't have the legs so much, and for the first time really we saw against Tennis Sangren that his body started letting him down. So he had his groin issue and he was kind of hobbling around the court. And he said in his post-match press conference and his on-court post-match interview that he thought the match was over. He completely accepted his fate. He thought Tennis Sangren deserved to win. I think it would have been brilliant if he had won. And Tennis Sangren, in response to, said for every match point he lost, he'd have 2 shots in the bar that night.
Right, okay.
This sort of 14 shots from last night. So that was the only way for him to get over that. But in terms of Djokovic against Federer, I can really only see this going one way, and that's a straight sets victory for Djokovic.
Right, okay.
Because like Federer's he's made life difficult for himself. It was the same against John Millman in the 3rd round, where he was 8-4 down in the deciding set.
Do you think we'll be in this situation all calendar year where Novak Djokovic is just pushing away from the crowd in every tournament? Is it just an Australian Open thing? Like Nadal will obviously come closer to him come Roland Garros.
No, he has. I mean, Djokovic has won the most Australian Open titles. He's won 7. He beat Nadal in the final last year.
He does love this time of the year.
But Federer won the previous 2 finals. And last year, Djokovic and Nadal split the Grand Slams between them. So Nadal won the French Open and won the US Open. The only thing I worry about for this one, if we want a different victor than Djokovic, is that Nadal hasn't won the Australian Open since 2009, and that was the only time he won it. He beat Federer in 2009. So he doesn't have a great record in Australian Open finals. He's lost 4 of them, and he's only won 1.
But should he win this? That's him at 17 then at this point. 2 back from Nadal, 3 back from Federer. Like, we've spoken about this quite a bit after Wimbledon last year about how this is very much inside. Federer is very much inside for him. Like, that just adds a whole new element to it as well yesterday. I should say Dominic Thiem is racking up a couple of break points here as well. This set is not done for Rafa Nadal. I just want to mention the women's section of the tournament before you wrap up this morning, because you've got the other semi-finals tomorrow morning. You've got Kenin against Ashley Barty, and then you've got Garbiñe Muguruza up against Simona Halep tomorrow morning. Muguruza is unseated for this, obviously. She's had a bit of a tough time since winning Wimbledon 2 years ago.
She actually won the French Open as well.
And the French Open. What's happened there? Is she a complete outsider here of the 4?
Muguruza?
Yeah.
Well, only because Halep and Barty are also still in it. Only for that reason. She beat Pavlyuchenkova today in the quarter-final pretty handily. Muguruza is brilliantly talented, but again, she's struggled big time with injury. And that's been the case for the women's game the last decade. There's been no dominant player, really. Out of the 40 Grand Slams contested in the last decade, there was 18 different winners. Muguruza won 2 of those. So there's been no dominant female athlete in that time. Everyone thought Naomi Osaka was going to take over, but again, like, she sensationally lost Coco Gauff at this tournament. So there's always room. You're always going to get a surprise package in the women's in the quarter-final or semi-final of Grand Slams in the last few years. The surprise package this time, Sofia Kenin. She's a 22-year-old from America, born in Russia. Very combative, very straight-talking, doesn't try to charm anyone in her interviews, which in itself actually endears people to her because she doesn't try to be liked.
Right.
So that's an enjoyable aspect of it. But I can only see a Barty and Halep final, and Ash Barty obviously home favourite, world number 1. This is the best she's ever done in the Australian Open. She's only 23. She won the French Open last year. But I think Simona Halep will win this. She hasn't won it. She hasn't won the Australian Open. She lost 2 years ago in the final to Caroline Wozniacki, who retired after losing at the Australian Open this year. So I can see Halep going one step further and beating Barty in the final. That'd be my prediction for that. I just don't think Barty will respond too well to the pressure of being the home favourite in Melbourne as well. So that's what I can see happening in the women's, definitely.
So that's tomorrow morning, up at all hours. You want to catch all of that, and then you've got the men's section tomorrow. Rafa Nadal has been broken by Dominic Thiem, so that's back to 5-4 in the first set. Dominic Thiem with serve now to bring it back to 5-all. So an interesting little development there in Australia. Cullen Buig, thanks a million for popping in this morning. Just some breaking news before you wrap up on OTB AM today. Sheffield United have allowed Callum Robinson to join Championship promotion hopefuls West Bromwich Albion on loan for the remainder of the campaign. So big news for the Republic of Ireland. The 24-year-old has made 9 starts and 7 substitute appearances in the Premier League. So big move there, as I say, for Callum Robinson. Although things weren't going too badly for him so far at Sheffield United, he's decided to drop down a division for the remainder of the season. That is us this morning on Wednesday's OTB AM. Thanks a million for joining us. Back in your radios tonight from 7 o'clock. Brian O'Driscoll will be on with the lads. Tom Kundert on exactly what kind of player Bruno Fernandes is. We understand that the deal to Manchester United will be done at some point at long last today and this afternoon. And 2 stars of last year's All-Ireland Camogie final, Galway's Heather Cooney and Kate Power of Kilkenny will be in studio. Tomorrow morning then, there's a shot clock with Kieran Donaghy making its bow for 2020. We'll bring you the reaction to the Manchester Derby tonight, and we'll be continuing our build-up to the start of the Six Nations. We'll see you tomorrow at 7:30. Bye-bye for now.
OTB AM. This is OTB